So we've just checked out the opening statements by the prosecution and by the defense. And the first thing we're going to talk about in part one of this two-part series is the prosecution's opening statements. First off, the prosecutor is a gentleman named Binu Palal. I believe he's of Indian descent. Not sure. But Keefe, we are sure about this, calls him blackface. Keefe says that he's Indian, but he says that the only reason the DA's office is using Mr. Palal is because they don't have any black prosecutors and they need blackface in the trial. Palal is the chief deputy district attorney. He's been with the DA's office since 2012. And I met him one time, not the kind of meeting where you're like, hey, what's up? But I actually met him in the courtroom. He was on the other side. He was on the prosecutor's side. And I was defending someone who was accused of violating their probation, and they wanted to remand them into custody for a violation of the probation. The case right before our case was called, I remember the defense attorney and Mr. Palal, and Mr. Palal was pointing over to the defense table saying, his client has committed 17 felonies and 34 misdemeanors in Clark County. So when I got up, the very first thing I said is hello, this is John Courtney representing the defendant. For the record, Your Honor, my client has not committed 17 felonies and 34 misdemeanors. Mr. Palal goes crazy. Wait, that's irrelevant. Objection, objection. That has nothing to do with this case. And the judge says, objection sustained. So Tupac, this is how the opening statement starts, comes out to Las Vegas for the Tyson fight. So Tupac and Suge Knight and others, right after the fight had ended, they're walking through the MGM Grand and they ran into Lando, and he was all by himself. Lando, just so that you know, let's go back a little bit. He's the guy that ripped off the necklace with the death row pendant on it from Trayvon Lane, and they proceeded to stomp that fool. I mean, Trayvon Lane is there, Pac is there, Suge's there, and they're stomping on him. Side note, this is not in the opening statement, but there's a rumor out there that Diddy would pay a bounty to anyone who would show up presenting Diddy with a Tupac chain and pendant. So a few hours after Lando gets beat down, Suge and Tupac are driving down Flamingo in Las Vegas, and they're headed to Club 662, which is owned, at least in large part, maybe completely, by Suge Knight. Tupac was going to perform at 662 that night. Now if you wanna roll with me, then hit your chance to it. So the prosecution makes a point to say Tupac's not a gang member. I mean, he's associated with the gang, Mob Piru, but he's not a gang member. They go on to say that Mob Piru is a blood set out of Compton. During the 2.5 hours between Lando getting stomped down and Tupac and Suge getting shot, you will learn that the defendant was escalating and planning the retribution for the beating of his beloved nephew. That's a quote from the prosecutor. That would be Keefe's nephew, Orlando Anderson, often referred to as Lando. He was also part of the Southside Compton Crips, and Keefe was a leader in that gang. The prosecutor clearly stated that what you will learn in that 2.5 hour window, all that stuff's going to come from Keefe himself, because Keefe talks too much. The prosecutor says there are two gangs that are important in this case. One of them being Mob Piru. The other one being the Southside Compton Crips. Mob Piru, red. Southside Compton Crips, blue. Colors. So Suge Knight grew up in the neighborhood that's controlled by Mob Piru. Mob Piru was regularly employed by Death Row Records for security. The prosecutor also mentions someone named Eric Zip Martin. He's not a member of the Southside Compton Crips. He's a drug trafficker from New York, and Keefe knew him through the drug trafficking trade. I don't know if they went to conventions or how that happened, but they knew each other by way of both being drug traffickers, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. And Zip is associated with Diddy. So the Southside Compton Crips, they become Diddy's West Coast security team. You see, Diddy had some legitimate worries that when he came out to the West Coast, might be some problems with Death Row and Mob Piru. And so he needed his own security team out of the West Coast. So when he and or his artists would come to the West Coast, then Southside Compton Crips would be their security detail. Diddy was afraid of getting whacked. So the inner Compton rivalry is born. And at the Lakewood Mall, that's where the fire got started. You see, Trayvon Lane of Mob Piru, he's with a bunch of other people of Mob Piru. And Lando of Southside Compton Crips was with some other folks from Southside Compton Crips. And a big brawl breaks out. I mean, and they're going at it. And during this brawl, Trayvon Lane gets a Death Row necklace and pendant ripped off his neck. So after this, Mob Piru, they needed some revenge because they got disrespected, particularly disrespected because that pendant got ripped off the neck. You know what I'm saying? Death Row. So when Lando was all by himself in the MGM and a bunch of Mob Piru walks by, Death Row people walk by, it was time to exact that revenge. Then after Lando gets beat down, then it's time for them to exact revenge on the revenge.
I will have my vengeance.
And the prosecutor says that Keefe himself, his own words, will tell you what happened in order to set up this revenge for the revenge. Remember Zip? So after the Lando beating, Keefe gets a gat from Zip. Keefe's got the gat and they start cruising. Keefe's in the passenger seat, shotgun, and they're cruising around after the fight. And who do they run into? Someone in a black Cadillac. People are screaming, Tupac, Tupac. Must be Tupac. So they make a U-turn and roll back up on that black BMW. So according to Keefe, if you believe Keefe, or which Keefe you believe, he hands the gat to the back seat. And he passes it to Trey. Trey's like, I ain't shooting nobody. And so Lando gets the gat, and Lando starts firing. You know what I'm saying? Let's back up a little bit. In that white car, that big, long white car. Let's talk about who was in it. So we got Terrence T. Brown. He's driving. We got Keefe sitting shotgun. Right behind T. Brown is DeAndre Dre Smith. And then right behind Keefe in the car, that's Lando. So they roll up on the black BMW. On the passenger side of the black BMW, means the driver's side of the white caddy, Keefe says, if we would have rolled up and they were on my side of the car, I would have shot them myself. But they were on the other side. Suge was grazed and had some cuts from some glass, and Tupac was shot multiple times. Tupac died 6 days later. And within 24 hours of the shooting, though, the Southside Compton Crips are back in Compton, and what followed them back to Compton was a war. There was now a war between Mob Piru and the Southside Compton Crips. And within 10 days of the shooting, 3 people were already dead. Multiple people had been shot, including an 11-year-old girl. And guess what? No one got prosecuted for any of those shootings because no one talks in Compton. Everyone stays quiet in Compton, except Keefe. In 1998, Keefe admitted to the FBI that he was in Las Vegas at the time Tupac was shot. He admitted that in 1999 also when he talked to the FBI. He said he wasn't involved in the shooting in 1999, but he admitted that he was mad because Lando got disrespected and beat down. He said to the FBI that his plan was to handle it in Compton if Tupac had survived. In 2008, he admits to his role in the Tupac shooting, but when he was being interviewed by that federal police task force, they were interviewing him about Biggie and then also about the LAPD being corrupt. What's that interview got to do with Tupac? Nothing. Why are you talking about Tupac, Keefe? So Biggie was killed 6 months after Tupac died. And there were allegations that the LAPD was perhaps involved in the Biggie murder. Biggie was killed after he left the party in LA. And you know who else was at that party? Keefe. The suspect vehicle in the Biggie case was said to be an SS Impala. You know who else drives an SS Impala back then? Keefe. So check this out. So police, what they do to set him up, you know, because Keefe's really smart. I mean, you know what I mean. Muy estúpido. To set him up, they get a narc because they know he's a drug trafficker, right? And so they get a narc. Narc does a drug transaction with Keefe. Now they got him. So now they get him in and they're like, hey, you want to make a deal? You know, you want to go to prison? You want all your people to go to prison with you? If you want to make a deal, you need to talk to us about Biggie and you need to talk to us about the LAPD because that's what we're investigating. They weren't investigating Tupac. So Keefe says, all right. I got you. I understand. I don't know anything about Biggie, but let me tell you what we did to Tupac. That proffer, that conversation was secretly recorded, but it was released years later. So according to the prosecutors, Keefe then starts cooperating with the feds and he goes to New York. Remember this name? Zip. He goes to New York to get Zip implicated in the Biggie murder. It doesn't work. Zip is smarter than Keefe. Newsflash, I think everyone is. So in 2009, Keefe talks to Metro. Metro is the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We just call them Metro. And he admits again that he was in Las Vegas at the time of the shooting. And he admits that he was in a white Cadillac that night. And he admits that he got mad that night. He admits that he got a gat that night. Okay, remember 2008 when he's talking and it's secretly recorded? Well, Detective Greg Kading, he retires from his police work and he publishes a book in 2011 and he uses the secret tapes to put the book together. And then what follows after that is a documentary and a TV series was released too. And so Kading is cashing in. Ka-ching! Kading rats on Keefe, but you know, he got police blood. They're supposed to rat. But that meeting where Keefe was recorded, that was supposed to be a secret. But now everyone in the world, once that came out, everyone knows that Keefe is a canary. Just singing along. Sing, sing, sing. A 15-second word from our sponsors. Cool dudes, but stick around. We got crazy stuff to talk about next. Some lawyers learn personal injury in law school.
We learned it in hospital beds, and that's why we fight differently. We get it.
Get the personal attention you deserve. LBC Law Group puts you first.
In 2007, Keefe keeps talking. You know, he blabs to Law and Crime on Vlad TV. He says, all I want to do is tell the truth. Now the prosecutor is going to use his truth against him. He's the star witness in his own trial. And in 2017, what does he admit? He admits that he was in Las Vegas, and he admits that he was involved. Keefe also blabs about his visceral anger toward Tupac in 2020, 2021, 2022. You know, he's got a book that came out in 2019, and you know that book's going to be thrown at him. In his own book, he says, them jumping on my nephew gave us the ultimate green light to do something to their ass. You know, I should probably mention this. Keefe, as a drug kingpin, self-described, made a lot of money in his career, which begs the question, Keefe, why don't you fix your teefy? Even in 2024, I think it's a jailhouse call, Keefe's still talking about how much he hates Tupac. 30 years of visceral anger toward Tupac. So the prosecutor summarizes by saying that he admits to being the leader of the Southside Compton Crips. He admits to the significance of the fight at the Lakewood Mall. He admits to being in Las Vegas on the night of the shooting. He admits to being angry that Tupac and company smashed on Lando. He admits that he got a Glock 40 from Zip on the night of the shooting. He admits that he was in a white Cadillac on the night of the shooting. He admits to seeing Tupac in a black, was it a Mercedes, on the night of the shooting. He admits to handing into the back seat Zip's gun, and he admits to the shooter shooting from the back seat. So, even if Keefe didn't do it, I think he's so dumb that the prosecutors have a great case against him, using nothing more than his own words. There's a reason why people in Compton stay quiet. Keefe didn't get the memo. So check out our part 2. We're going to break down the defendant's opening statement. Keefe, none of what I said constitutes legal advice. You'll have to get that from Michael Sant.